classified as a first felony offender offenses: armed robbery, count one; count two, aggravated rape. Sentencing dates are April 24th, 1986 and February 7th, 2013. Total sentence is life. Parole date July 1st, 2016. Good time none. Full term life. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson.
Good morning, Mr. B. How are you?
I'm fine, Ms. Jackson. How y'all doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Your case has been assigned to me, so I'm going to start off the questioning. How old are you, Mr. B? 53?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long have you been incarcerated?
Almost 36 years.
And how old were you at the time that you committed this offense?
At 17.
Okay, but you were just shy of your 18th birthday, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to be honest with you, Mr. B. The facts of your case are extremely troubling, extremely troubling. Rape is bad enough, but in addition to the rape, you shot the victim. You raped her after having shot her. A customer came into the store. You kind of calmly, stopped the rape and went to the counter and waited on the customer. And then you returned and you continued the rape. You forced the victim to clean up her own blood and to change clothes, get out of her bloody smock so that she could continue to work at the register. This interaction lasted for a pretty long time, during which time you tormented her with some of the comments that you made. And I will tell you what concerns me is I know that, when you're 17 or 18, there's, a level of immaturity, but these facts seem to indicate something more troubling than just immaturity. There was a cruelty that you don't typically see in most people. And so I would like for you to explain to the board, what is it in you that enabled you to commit such a horrific crime against this woman?
Well, I was going through a lot with my family, and my mom and my dad was getting divorced, and I had a lot of anger built up in me. And one night I just, walked in the store and I violated her, I attacked her, I traumatized her.
Well, why? Okay, we all go through, families divorce, families break up, there are hard things in life. But what is it that makes you, why do you think you responded the way you did to literally ruin this woman's life?
Ma'am, I've been trying to figure out that same thing out for 36 years, ma'am.
So what you come up with?
And ma'am, I don't have no excuse for my actions. I don't have no answer for it, Ms. Jackson. I hurted her, I traumatized her, and ma'am, I'm not making no excuse for none of it, ma'am. I don't know. After 36 years, I still try to find that out, ma'am.
Well, one of the things that we have to look at is, your risk for reoffending. This is, you're still a relatively young man. So, there are some concerns that if you haven't come to grips with what enabled you to commit such a horrific crime, then we have to have some degree of comfort in believing that this isn't going to happen to anybody else. So that's why I'm asking that question. But we'll come back to that. So you've been incarcerated for almost 36 years. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And how old were you when you got to Angola?
18 years old, ma'am.
Okay. Because I see that over the course of time, you've had 73 write-ups.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain why you feel you have so many write-ups.
When I first came here, I wasn't adapting to the rules they had here. I was very immature. I was reckless, and I really do thank God that I came to Angola, because Angola taught me over a period of time of how to be a responsible man. And when I lined up with all the rules and the regulations and obeying the authority that I was under, it made me realize that, I needed to change. I wanted to change. And I started getting myself involved in a lot of positive things here at Angola to allow me to change.
Let's stick with your disciplinary history. Your last write-up was in 2012.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
it was a Rule 5, which is aggravated disobedience. Is that
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell us what happened in that incident?
I was told they changed my job, and I went to another job, and I didn't have the instructions that I needed to let anybody know I was going to my other job, and they wrote me up for aggravated disobedience for not getting permission to go to work that particular day.
If I missed it, I apologize, but I see that you went through sex offender treatment in 2012, but I only saw certificates for phase 1, 2, and 3, and I didn't see one for phase 4. Did I miss that?
Yes, ma'am. I got phase 4 in my jacket right here.
All right. Well, let's talk about the sex offender treatment. What did you learn from that?
I learned not to justify my actions, not to blame nobody for my actions. Don't be in denial for my actions.
Well, what did you learn about the dynamics of rape?
In the classes that we was taught, we had people that came from the outside that experienced such elements of a crime, and we was able to talk to them, and they was teaching us and sharing with us that there was so much trauma that was brought upon individuals when we committed such a heinous crime. And when I sit here and try to think about it, Ms. Jackson, it's hard for me to adapt that I did such a horrible crime, because I don't have no excuse for it, Ms. Jackson. I don't.
I'm not suggesting that you're making excuses, but did you learn what causes a person to commit a crime or sexual assault?
Yes, ma'am. I learned the triggers of what causes the sexual assault of another person. The triggers of fantasizing about it, the triggers of thinking about it, and being in denial that I'm actually thinking about it to carry out that kind of a crime, that kind of a heinous crime. So I learned the triggers.
So when you recognize those triggers, then what did you learn about dealing with them?
Well, over the course of the years that I did here and all the programming that I did, Ms. Jackson, it taught me how to be in self-control. It taught me how.
Tell me how.
When I have a thought of something, I'm able to go address it to the counselor, or go to address it to somebody, and let them know that that a thought came to my mind such as that, and I need to talk to somebody before it gets carried out in any kind of way. And the programs here taught me how to do that, ma'am, how to relate to other people about things like that and not be in denial of it.
I don't want to get too personal, but given your age at the time that this crime was committed, one may assume that your first sexual encounter was a rape. And you've been in prison for 36 years. And so, I don't know that you've learned how to be in a relationship with a female. So how would you address that?
And you're right, Ms. Jackson. Here I haven't learned that step yet, and I know that's something that I need to learn and how to do it the right way in a respectable way. And over everything that I've actually learned here, I know that I can respectably approach myself into a relationship like that without doing what I've done 36 years ago, ma'am.
Because rape isn't as much about the sex as it is the power and the control that you exert over another human being. Did
Yes,
you
ma'am.
learn that?
Yes, ma'am. I learned how that when an action is like that taken, it's all about the control. It's about having control over your victim, ma'am. And I'm not going to be in denial of that, Ms. Jackson. I'm not, and I'm not here to blame nobody but myself. And I take full responsibility for all of it, Ms. Jackson.
Well, and I do understand that, but I just want to make sure that you're equipped with what you need so that this doesn't happen to somebody else.
Yes, ma'am.
That's my concern.
I learned.
Go ahead.
I learned here that by growing up here, the experiences that I've had here, it allowed me to equip myself with the right tools that I need to do it the right way, to get involved with people the right way, to adjust with people and communicate with people the right way, and not try to always have control over power over them. Okay. Yes, I learned that in my risk management class, Ms. Jackson.
Okay. I see that you completed pre-release in 2013.
Yes, ma'am.
Thinking for a Change in 2019.
Yes, ma'am.
Cage Your Rage in 2011.
Yes, ma'am.
Living in Balance in 2015.
Yes, ma'am.
Also Victim Awareness in 2015.
Yes, ma'am.
So what did you get out of Victim Awareness?
I actually had an opportunity, Ms. Jackson, to actually meet people that was actually traumatized by such a crime in person here in Angola. Mm-hmm. Back then, the program allowed us to meet with them, and it was really heartbroken the way they say that we do things to them, and it was real hurtful. It really was, and I had to learn the hard way, Ms. Jackson. I really did, because when they got up there, they spoke with, like they was just so traumatized, and I had firsthand knowledge of that, Ms. Jackson, on a one-on-one base with them, and I just couldn't believe that, I did such a heinous act like that, ma'am.
You also took Inside Out Dads in 2015, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Why'd you take that? You don't have any kids, so why'd you take that?
Because the Inside Outside Dad was teaching us character, about being not just a dad, but to being a responsible man, and how to hold responsibilities, even as far as even if you had a child or anything that was interacting with your life. It was a tool mechanism that was taught us how to utilize what we was taught in that class, the characteristics of being a father and a man.
Was Thinking for Change in 2019 the last program you've taken?
No, ma'am.
What else have you taken since 2019?
I took, I graduated from, I got a trade in culinary arts, and I took cultivating compassion, and I just, I only have one more class left to do, 100 round pre-release of fresh course.
Okay, so you're doing the refresher course for pre-release.
Yes, ma'am, but it was put on hold because of COVID.
Okay, and what is cultivating compassion? What is that about?
Uh, Cultivating compassion goes beyond the feeling more empathy and concern for others, and that's what the class was based upon, about how to put myself on the side and be more concerned about others' needs, and and others' feelings at all levels in every aspect of life. And the cultivating compassion taught me how to be more compassionate to other people, and when they're going through something, when they're not going through something.
You have a lot of opposition, Ms. Biot, and there's not anything you can do to change that, but the DA is opposed, the sheriff is opposed, and certainly Ms. Terrio, the victim in this case, is adamantly opposed. And this crime has continued to impact her life even to this day. And she's 73 years old. And her life has been horribly impacted for the last 36 years as well. What would you say to her?
I would apologize to her because I violated her. I hurt her. I attacked her, and I traumatized her. And if there was any kind of way that I can take back my actions 36 years ago, I would. And I apologize to her wholeheartedly because I can't make no excuse for my actions. I take full responsibility for the pain that I've caused her and her family. And I don't blame nobody but myself, ma'am.
Because there is no one to blame but yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Warden Helga, what can you tell us about Mr. Biot?
Well, he has been a men custody since going back to 2009. He's a men B at present, and that's because of his charges. He's since 2013 worked back at Camp D as file clerk, working in the clothing room. Not necessarily a glamorous job, but he has held the same job for that many years. He's done a good job for them back there. And in his time since he's been here, it just needs to be noted that there was an issue where a security officer was assaulted by another offender, was actually hit on the head with an object, and Offender Billiot came to the assistance of that security officer by notifying other security in the area to come to the aid of the officer. So he has been, like I said, since 2009, a man, and we've not had any trouble with him.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Warren, for that input. Mr. Biot.
Yes, ma'am.
I was looking at your master prison record, and on number 19, it talked about reentry planning and preparation, and they have 19 refused to participate, and they checked yes, that you refused to participate in the reentry planning and preparation. You want to explain that to me?
Miss Bonnie, if I may interject for a moment, this is Francis Abbott. If he has 100 hours pre-release, that is what that prep class is. So that may be a typographical error on that report.
All right, well, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Jackson, this is Warden Falvey. That's a clerical error on classifications here.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Mr. B, if you were successful today, I know that you are working with the Louisiana Parole Project, but what are your long-term plans if you are successful today?
My long-term plans is to be, if the board has mercy on me, to grant me parole to the Parole Project. And I want to be able to learn everything that I can there. I want them to be able to redefine my character. I want them to be able to redefine the things that I need to know and to carry on in society to be a long and productive citizen. And I'm relying solely on the Parole Project to installing me in them tools for me to go to school and go to classes that is necessary for me to go to.
Okay, well, let me just ask some more pointed questions. Obviously, you can't stay with the Louisiana Parole Project forever. What's your residence plan once you're done with the Parole Project? Where do you think you're going to be able to live?
I'm gonna try to find some support system because, Ms. Jackson, I lost my family since I've been here. I lost my mom, my dad, my two brothers, and my sister, and I only got one brother left, and I have no knowledge of where he lives. And I pray to God that.
I noticed that you didn't have any family support, and family support is one of the things that contribute to long-term success, and you don't have that. So how are you going to build this support network without family?
I lost all my family and they passed away here, Ms. Jackson, and the only ones that I do have to rely on is the Parole Project, man, to be able to help me and point me in the right direction. And as long as they ever allow me to stay there, I will until I can, work on my own and get my own job and establish my own home. Yes, ma'am.
What kind of job skills do you have, Mr. Beyond?
In the early 1990s, I graduated with my CDL license of driving big trucks, and I just graduated from culinary arts. I love to cook, so I'm really educated in them areas there, but I always have room to learn anything else. So learn more of what I need to know if a job comes available that I can get outside of them too, Ms. Jackson.
What city did this crime occur in?
Home, Louisiana.
Okay. Because I would really like you not to return to that area at all.
Yes, ma'am.
Ever. And because you have no family, there's no reason that you would need to go back to that area. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Kelsey, thank you. That's all I have.
All right, we'll hear from Mr. Andrew Hunley now. Andrew Hunley with Louisiana Parole Project, appearing before the board today to inform you that Lacy is a client of ours. We've actually been working with Lacy for several years now. As you are aware, Lacy appears before the board today because of the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Graham, which says that juveniles convicted of non-homicide offenses cannot have life without parole sentences. So that allowed Lacy to have over the last several years has considered well over 100 juvenile offenders who are seeking second chances after decades of incarceration. So we appear before you today not to make any excuses on behalf of who Lacy was and the horrible act that he committed decades ago. We stand before you to tell you today that our organization is committed to helping Lacy, and that doesn't mean just because he was a juvenile lifer, but we recognize that he has demonstrated growth over the last several decades based on his institutional record. I know it was pointed out before that he had 73 write-ups over the course of his incarceration. I know approximately 65 of those were in his first 10 years. So over the last several years, he's demonstrated that he can operate within the confines of a rule-based system. As Warden Falgout pointed out, he's held the same job for over 10 years. I'm familiar with the job he has. It is a high-stress job, and he does have the reputation of being a very diligent, hard worker. And he has completed all the programming that he's experienced, that it has been expected of him. I can tell you that since we began working with Lacy, he had, as opposed to other people who may have been convicted of similar crimes, he has always been straightforward about his remorse and what he has done to better himself. Our organization commits to the board that we will provide long-term reentry support to Lacy, and that includes housing. Now, Judge Jackson's correct that he cannot stay with us forever, but we commit to this board that, minimum of 1 year that we will provide to him, and longer if necessary. But we believe that based on his skill set, his ability to have employment, our goal is for him to earn income. Obviously, to stay in Baton Rouge, there's no reason for him to go to Terrebonne Parish or anywhere around Terrebonne Parish. We will help him find employment, save money, eventually get his own apartment. Parole Project, as you're aware, owns rental properties now that we do rent to clients who look for housing, post-transitional housing. And if we can help Lacy with that, we can. But long story short, we will provide long-term care even after he moves out of our transitional program. We realize that it's very important that Lacy is successful long-term. However, if we look to the evidence of juvenile lifers that this board has taken a chance on over the last several years and around the country, juvenile lifers have shown a great propensity to change their lives and be successful individuals when given a second chance. And we remain available to answer any questions that the board may have about Lacy's reentry claim. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Billy, would you like to make a statement on your behalf?
Yes, sir, I would.
Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank y'all for having me here today. And I apologize to the victim and all her family for the pain and everything that I've caused them. And if the board finds it in their heart to grant me parole today, that I'm gonna do everything in my power. I'm gonna do everything with my support system for me to never, ever, 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 ever again in life, ever reoffend or get in trouble, and just be able to be the productive citizen that is required for me to have. And I want to thank y'all for having me here today.
All right, Ms. Hogan.
Thank you. Just very briefly, as Andrew pointed out, Graham versus Florida announces a bright line and says that juveniles that are not convicted of homicide offenses, in order for their sentence to not violate the 8th Amendment, Lacy must be afforded realistic opportunities to obtain release prior to the end of his sentence, which would be life in this case. Mr. Billiot has been denied parole on 2 different occasions, in large part due to the facts of this crime, which will never change, and we make no excuses for what happened 36 years ago. But analyzing his record, there are objective indicators of profound demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation that began long before there was a Graham decision, long before there was any hope for parole. Lacy obtained his GED in '93, 2 other trades in truck driving and culinary arts. He's taken every program that has been available, even programs that are not exactly applicable to him, like Inside Out Dads. He's taken programs that he thought could benefit himself. And perhaps the best indicator of his rehabilitation has been the manner in which he conducts himself, even when he gets denied parole. In 2019, he was denied parole at his last hearing, and he continued to excel at his job. He took available programs that were offered, and he was appointed the president of the Camp D Social Club, which is responsible for providing hygiene and other products to other individuals that don't have financial assistance. He's fed the entire population of Camp D on several occasions. He has also facilitated classes that improve communication between incarcerated men at Camp D and the men and the staff, to the point of Mr. Billiot's disciplinary records. He has received 73 write-ups, but it is notable, as Andrew pointed out, that 65 of those were in the first decade of his incarceration, and none of those write-ups were for violent offenses. None of them were for sex offenses. It's clear that he is able to control any impulse that he has, that the classes that he's taken have worked. He's built a support network in prison. As he told you, he grew up in prison, and he has the support of the institution, as indicated by a letter from Warden Sanders in the brief that I submitted. And we're confident that if he's released, he'll be able to build that same support network in society. We stand committed to provide that support network to him immediately upon release and to track his case for the rest of his life. So we would ask this board to grant Lacy Billiot parole under any conditions that are deemed appropriate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is the panel prepared to vote? Ms. Jackson?
Right, Mr. Bion, when I reviewed your file, as I said, there's a lot of things that troubled me in it. And, I wrote, we'll decide after interview, because I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to hear what you had to say. I wanted to hear how you presented yourself. And based on your interview, my comfort level has gone up. I think you do recognize the horrific nature of your crime and the impact that it had on Ms. Theriault and how she continues to suffer today. Your risk is low. You have a good institutional record. You've taken the sex offender program and you've gained some insights from that. You've taken victim awareness and gained some insights. And you're repeating pre-release. And although you don't have any family support, you do have the support of the Louisiana Parole Project. And so all those things, and you had letters of support from a number of the prison people who oversee you and interact with you, the Camp D supervisor, wardens, and that kind of thing. So you've demonstrated yourself to be someone who probably is deserving of another opportunity. So my vote today, and can someone help me with the language, particularly on the one with the life sentence? Does it have to be commuted to give him parole eligibility?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So my vote today would be to grant your parole to the Louisiana Parole Project.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Ms. Renata?
Well, Mr. Billiot, I have to say that this is the third time I think you've been before a parole panel. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And I do appreciate that you never gave up, that you continued doing what you do and helping others, doing a good job. You have a great work ethic. So I really appreciate that, and I want to thank you for that.
Yes,
I also appreciate the remarks by Warden Falmu, particularly those when he mentioned that you rendered aid to a correctional officer. That carries a lot of weight with me. I looked at the record. I've listened to you today. I think you had a great, good interview. I also appreciate the sincerity with which you expressed remorse for the horrible thing that you did. My vote today also is to grant your parole to the Parole Project. You have a low risk score. You've got good programs. You've demonstrated growth over the past 2 decades. And I think the transition plan is good. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, you have 2 votes to grant your parole today. I'm as well very familiar with your case. I've been on your panel before, haven't I?
Thank
All
you.
right. I've been on your panel before, so yeah, you've done a lot of good work. Since I saw you probably 5 years ago. You put the time in. I think you have a good plan. And my vote would be to grant your parole today to the parole project. You'd have a curfew from 10 p to 6 a. You'd have no contact with the victim's family, and you would not return to Terrebonne Parish for any reason. So that's my vote today. 3 votes to grant. Parole's been granted. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
I don't know. I don't know if enough time could pass listening to that crime to say that you should get released. The way Miss Jackson handled this hearing, my jaw just dropped open. I didn't have that information. I mean, Richard did share some, but I didn't realize to the extent that he goes in there and he says, because my parents are going through a divorce, I was in a bad place. For someone to sexually assault a woman, shoot her, and continue to do it, to be able to then calmly get up when a customer comes and act so perfectly normal at the age of 17 so that he doesn't even know something's wrong, that person is dangerous. And as much as I thought he had a decent interview too, and I thought his did seem to show emotions and remorse, how can you trust someone who has not just the capability to do a crime like that, but the ability to do a crime like that and then remain calm and not get caught when someone walks in the store? This article was written in 2016. A Terrebonne Parish man is seeking parole in the first area case that qualifies for review under a recent federal ruling to ease the harshness of sentencing for juveniles, life in prison without parole. And that's why if you caught in the beginning when he said that he had 2 sentences, one in 1987 and one in 2016, is because he was resentenced in 2016 because of this law. So this isn't an Act 122 law. This is about the constitutional rights of not sentencing a minor to life. And you love ads. Now, the state official confirmed that 47 years old, so she was 47, Lacy Billet. Okay, I'm sorry. He is Lacy. He was 47 at this time. He was convicted of armed robbery and aggravated sexual assault while a teenager. He's up for parole in October. Date has not been set. Remember, this is 2016. We don't have any of his previous hearings recorded, but I do have some notes on it to share with you soon. Now, according to 2010 Supreme Court ruling, juvenile like Billiot, who were sentenced to life without parole for non-homicidal crimes, must be provided a meaningful opportunity to obtain release. Otherwise, their sentence is in violation of the 8th Amendment, which protects against cruel and excessive punishment. In 1987, the 17-year-old, which the way Miss Jackson spoke about him, I thought maybe he was 12 or 14 or 15 because she assumed it was his first sexual experience. I don't know how she could assume that. Of Gray was found guilty of robbing a convenience store at gunpoint and sexually assaulting a 38-year-old clerk Records show he received 2 consecutive terms of 99 years and life imprisonment without benefit of probation or parole as the maximum sentence for armed robbery and aggravated assault. After numerous rejected appeals, the district appellate and state Supreme Court levels, district court amended sentence in 2013 to allow for parole in the wake of Graham versus Florida in 2010. To justify life without parole on the assumption that the juvenile offender forever will be a danger to society requires the sentencer to make a judgment of the juvenile is incorrigible. Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote for the majority, the characteristics of juveniles make that judgment questionable. Billiot has served the last 29 years in Camp Dean, Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola. Court records show that during that time he has attained a Class A trustee status, a classification reserved for model inmates. He has also earned his GED along with multiple professional and religious certificates. I mean, you do have to give him credit that he has done well in prison, I suppose. You don't have to, but not everyone goes into prison and does well. And man, going into Angola at the age of, did he say 17 or 18? In the 80s, that must have been tough. Mr. Billiot's transformation while in prison from a frightened teenager. From a frightened teenager. I love it. It's like, oh, you mean do you mean from a monstrous teenager? The words that they use is laughable. To a model inmate and trusted employee at Angola shows that has demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation. Area probation and parole agents are in the process of preparing a report to advise the State Parole Committee. In October, the State Parole Committee will consider the facts. Blah, blah, blah. They're just going through. Okay, let's see here. Records show he'll be required to register and avoid all contact with the victim who's now 60. So the victim is in her 60s, and they mention that she's terrified. And that's why you need a victim advocate. That's why you need a DA to show up, because you don't know what this has done to her after he's released. And when you don't have anyone show up on behalf of the victim, you forget about the victim. They're withholding the victim's identity due to the nature of the crime. She declined to comment for this story. Even them reaching out to her would have been traumatizing. And this is the interesting tidbit that I wanted to share with you. Thank you, Richard. Is that they're talking about how they were talking about how it's quite funny how gracious he was after his parole hearings and how he didn't give up and everything, but he sued the parole board after he got denied in 2019. And it doesn't state in the documents why he sued the parole board, but it says that the respondents were Alvin Roche, Francis Abbott, and Jim Wise. So I guess that was, I don't know why, Francis Abbott, would he have been on the, I know he's like the director, but he wouldn't have been a member. Anyways, that's it's how do you feel? I mean, he is still out. He hasn't revoked, but I don't know. It's hard to understand. See, it's one thing if you commit a crime where it's like you armed robbery and someone gets shot, but when it's so vicious and cold to the extent of the crime that he committed, it just makes me wonder how you can ever trust that nature from not reoffending. It's scary. It takes a different type, and he wasn't able to. It was just, my parents were going through a divorce. I was angry. It's like, yeah, people don't do what you did. That's just, that's demented. There's a reason he got 2 life sentences. But here it is. He is walking amongst us. And with that, I'll let you go.